It is 6:30 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And note that Mayor Harder is at home recovering from a bout of the flu and will not be here today, so I've been asked to chair this meeting. Therefore, be it resolved, the agenda for this regular council meeting of April 12th, 2022 be adopted. A mover?
Marmon.
And a second? Karina. Anything further that should be added to it? Nope. All those in favor? And that is carried. Be it resolved that the minutes of the regular council meeting of March 22nd, 2022 be adopted. Mover?
Michael.
Second?
Andrew?
Any comments on those? All in favor? And that is carried. Be it resolved that the minutes of the special council meeting of March 31st, 2022 be adopted. A mover?
Marmon.
And a second? Karina. Any questions or comments on that? That was dealing with the land purchase that we had that we needed to move quickly on to make that happen. All in favor? And that is carried. Moving then into correspondence, we have a letter and a request from the Morton Community Handy Van. Any comments or thoughts on that?
Well, I thought that is something that would be good for us to study up a little further. We haven't had a lot of success with our own because of largely because of lack of taking up rides, and yet that it's needed for some people. So this would be a very economical way for the communities to work together. So I would encourage us to pursue this further in some way to help them out so we can all work together on it.
I know it's come up a few times with the Winkler Resource Committee as well, right? But there are so many different not-for-profits that express, and they have that pressure point, right? So they see it firsthand, and so I agree that where we can find a solution, we should open up every corner, every door. So this is good. I'm glad that they reached out.
Yeah.
Maybe we should hand this to Jody and see how this potentially could fit into our sponsorships piece for the year, and maybe come back with a recommendation. Council comfortable with that?
Yeah,
Yes.
excellent idea.
Okay.
And a thank you to them for serving our citizens.
Absolutely.
They have done a great job of that, and so I
To the
thank
tune
them
of
for that.
almost 500
It's
rides.
crazy.
It's very significant.
Yeah.
Couple of letters from municipal relations, the payment in lieu of taxes piece, assessment services with the Board of Revision date set for, what was that date again in November, is set for November 15th at 7 p.m. At various times in the past, we haven't had to have a Board of Revision meeting.
right.
But the date is set either way, and then hopefully all of that can be cleared up before we get to that place.
I guess I have a question in regards to the payment in lieu of taxes.
Sure.
Do you know offhand, David, how many buildings or what kind of dollar figure is Winkler affected by? I know some other communities have a lot more federal properties.
For us, it's one building.
Just the post office?
Just the post office.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's minor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we are in contact with the province, and they have given us the confirmation that they are working on it, and
Right.
that they will send us they will send the funds our way as soon as they have cleared it
Mm-hmm.
on their site. But for now, it's just waiting.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be, some other communities that have a lot more federal buildings, it would be much, would have a much greater effect on them now. So, yeah.
Because we were obligated to send the school portion to the school.
Right.
We could not keep that 10% back.
Mhm.
Okay. Any further comments on our correspondence before we move on? Not seeing any. Be it resolved that accounts payable in the amount of $913,477.32 as approved by the Finance Committee be approved for payment. Mover?
Andrew.
Second.
Karina.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that is carried. Continuing on then, be it resolved that campaign expenses and contribution bylaw 2281-22 be given second reading. Mover?
Marvin?
Seconder?
Michael?
Any thoughts or comments on that?
Nope.
Not seeing any. All in favor? That is carried. Be it resolved that campaign expenses and contribution bylaw 2271-22 be given third and final reading. Mover?
Karina.
Second.
Michael?
Last chance for comment. All in favor? And that is carried. Continuing then to bylaw 2282-22, use of municipal resources in an election. Be it resolved that use of municipal resources in an election bylaw 2282-22 be given second reading. Mover?
Marvin?
Seconder? As we know, this is a new piece that is new to this election cycle. And basically, it just makes sure that there's crystal clarity in terms of what candidates can and cannot do in a municipal election. Any further thoughts or comments to it?
Nope.
All in favor? Carried.
So this would be shared with candidates when they come and pick up their papers and so on?
That's right. We have a electronic, basically digital package to send people.
Mhm.
And we have all of the documents ready, waiting for these two bylaws to pass third reading. And then Barb, as our senior election official, has prepared all of those, and on request, we send them out. And we'll have them available for pickup with printed copies if requested. But the province this year is not printing out the guides like they have done in the past.
Interesting.
Okay.
Okay. Be it resolved then that the use of municipal resources in an election bylaw 2282-22 be given third and final reading. Mover?
Andrew.
Second.
Michael?
Any last thoughts? All in favor? And carried. Be it resolved that tax levy bylaw number 2280-22 be given second reading. Mover?
Andrew.
Second.
Karina.
Any further thoughts on that? All in favor? Carried. Be it resolved that tax levy bylaw number 2280-22 be given third and final reading. Mover?
Andrew.
Second.
Michael?
Michael? Last thoughts? Anything that you need to add, David?
No, this just gives us the ability now to apply for our taxes to the province. So now everything's final.
Okay.
It's good.
All those in favor? And that is carried. Moving into fire department, be it
Oh, you're
resolved
missing
that the...
5-8.
Utility.
Did I miss 5-8?
Yep.
I better hit refresh. I don't have my 5-8 here. Thank you for that, Andrew.
No problem.
Be it resolved that the attached utility arrears be added to their respective tax rolls. Mover?
Andrew.
Second.
Marvin?
All those in favor? And carried. Be it resolved that the Winkler Fire Department report for March 22 be received for information. Mover.
Michael,
And a second.
Karina.
Any comments on that, Michael?
after a busy start, they've had a chance to catch their breath a bit, I think, and better road conditions prior to these upcoming days, I would imagine. They continue to do great work, though.
Well,
That they do.
starting at 0 hours, we'll be there 24/7 for the next 2.5 or more days.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Wow.
emergency response.
yeah, yeah. We,
Who
we
requested
will-
that?
That is part of our work with CERC,
Oh, okay.
and we will be doing convoys to the hospital from town, from both cities, 3 times a day, so that people
great.
can get through to get their shifts in there.
With what vehicle?
We're working with all 3 municipalities. We will be following the arm of Stanley snowplow,
Okay.
and it'll be a convoy and then coming back. So we'll have one of our units, and then probably at the tail end, and the plow in front, and then the hospital staff in between.
I see.
So that'll be for every shift, right? I
Yeah,
guess.
three
Yeah,
three
that's
times a
great.
day, yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you for
Yeah,
doing that.
absolutely.
Please pass on our thank yous.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I would add to many of the lessons learned after debriefing the October 2019 storm were put into practice in preparation for this upcoming storm.
Mhm.
Excellent.
And just like for the whole city, like it's
Absolutely.
not just for the fire department.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's, yeah, I think if things will go south, it's not going to be for lack of trying this time. It's,
Yeah.
I think, I anticipate things will work very well.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
That also brings us to how many different staffs have made adjustments. So please pass on our thank yous for the extra effort.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
Okay. Any further comments on the report? All those in favor? And that is carried. Moving then to health and welfare, be it resolved that the Boundary Trails Health Center Foundation meeting minutes for February 28th, 2022, meeting be received for information. Mover.
Marvin?
Marvin, a second.
Karina.
Any comments on those minutes?
Again, they are grinders. We are lucky to have them serving.
For sure.
All those in favor? And we're carried. Moving then into planning, be it resolved that council authorize Manitoba Hydro to install 16 90W LED 35-foot Cobra head doveets for the annual amount of $3,118.08 plus applicable taxes. Mover?
Marvin?
And a second?
Michael,
And that is in Northlands Parkway streetlights. So it's good to see that being lit up a little bit.
Nice.
Any further thoughts? All those in favor? And we're carried. Be it resolved that the in-camera Special Planning Committee minutes for March 10th, 2022 be adopted. Mover?
Marvin?
And a second?
Karina.
Okay. All those in favor?
Has there been more discussion on this item? Or what, like what? I guess we're just agreeing to approve these minutes. We're not necessarily agreeing to
That's
anything.
right.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Nothing can happen, like even on that decision or that discussion, until we have approvals for wastewater. So it's kind of in wait mode.
Okay.
I understood that the conversation was just getting started, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Anything further?
Nope.
All those in favor? And that is carried. Be it resolved that bylaw 2284-22 be given first reading. Mover,
Marvin.
and a second.
Michael?
And that is a bylaw to rezone 115 Main Street South. Obviously, putting it on the floor like this allows the advertising to take place so that we can then go to the public hearing
Correct.
aspect of it.
That's right.
Anything further? All in favor? And that is carried. Be it resolved that council approves subdivision number 4463-22-8194. Mover,
Karina.
and a second.
Marvin.
Okay, you guys see the shared notes there? Anything further that we have questions on, or Jody, that we should be aware of?
I think there was already, like, you'll see attached the previous conditional use that was approved and the order, conditions that went along with that. And so that has all been complied with, and that's why staff haven't put any, recommended any conditions on this approval.
Thank you, Jody. Any other questions of council? All in favor? And that is carried. Be it resolved that council approves subdivision number 4463-22-8188, subject to minor variation approval of the east side yard at 1364 Crystal Drive. Mover,
Marvin.
and seconder.
Michael?
And again, Jody, any additional
I would just
comment?
add on this one, that minor variation has now been approved. I don't think we need to change the resolution because it would still stand, but that minor variation has been approved. Neighbors were consulted, and so everyone's good with the
Excellent.
changes that are happening there.
Thank you. Any additional comments or thoughts from council? All in favor? And that is carried. Be it resolved that the Discover Nature Sanctuary meeting minutes for the January 12th and February 15th, 2022 meetings be received for information. Mover,
Karina.
and a second.
Marvin.
Any additional comments on what you see there?
Just a massive thank you to Margaret Clausen for her years of dedicated service there.
Absolutely.
They would
Well
not be
noted.
where they are without her, and we're very grateful for her service.
Okay, all those in favor? Carried. Be it resolved that the Winkler Arts and Culture minutes for the March 15th, 22 meeting be received for information. Mover,
Michael?
second.
Karina.
Additional comments or thoughts, Michael?
Well, they are ecstatic that they can open without the restrictions and host
can imagine.
events, and they've also now hired recently a part-time host, so there's somebody staffed there again. And
Nice.
thank you, Jennifer, for the hours you're putting in helping her out, making that
Absolutely.
transition a little smoother.
Absolutely.
Yeah, looking
Okay.
forward to a good rest of the year for them.
Excellent. Anything further? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. Be it resolved that Council of the City of Winkler approve an extension for Councillor Marvin Platt to run for and serve on the board of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, FCM, from June 2022 to October 2022. Mover,
Karina Bickert.
second.
Andrew.
Marvin, thank you for continuing to serve in this way. It's much
I'm not
appreciated.
sure whether they will want to,
Don't.
whether they'll want to have it for a full year rather than that, whether it's acceptable, because I know when they ask, whether you can, like for us, whether we were able to attend board meetings and so. And so if we would have it for the whole year, obviously, council can decide when a new council comes in, and that happens after the elections this year.
Right.
It happens at that time when the persons get
Okay.
the draw, and it has happened where when new councils say you're needed someplace else or something like that. So I don't know, could we?
So you want to change the resolution?
So
Yeah.
is there a suggestion that we potentially make that to May 2023?
Well, yeah, that would, I think that would be how it would go.
Okay,
And then, as I said, obviously, when the election brings different, like,
Yeah.
or civic election brings different results, and each council, like, at this time, like, if it was the same council, then it would not look good if council said you could run, and then 4 months later changed their mind, unless there was some circumstances. But in a case like this, that would be totally acceptable. So,
yep.
Does the mover consider that a friendly amendment?
Absolutely. Please.
Okay,
Thank you. Thank you for your years of service.
absolutely.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Maybe we just pause and make Marv sweat that a little while.
Yeah.
Be it resolved then that this meeting of council recess for the purpose of holding public hearings. Mover.
Michael?
Second.
Andrew?
Okay,
Andrew got it.
thank you.
And all in favor? Carried. And Jody?
Okay, we have a public hearing for variance 2022-018 and for conditional use 2022-002. And it's both for the same owner and applicant here. Going to the conditional use first. This is in order to provide a 2-lane shooting range for recreational use by Harville Homes and WBS staff. And so this is an indoor participant recreation service, and that is a conditional use in our zoning bylaw. And a second principal use building here is also a commercial planned unit. So this is for the location at 470 Centennial Street. Applicant is Alvin Thiessen on behalf of owner 4017579 Manitoba Limited. And then we have the variance, again, same applicant and owner. And this is to reduce the required 3-acre site area for a conditional, for a commercial planned unit from 3 acres to 0.85 acres, and to reduce the south side yard of accessory building from 5 feet to 4 feet. And this, of course, is in existing buildings owned by the company. And you see there the report to council, which has been sent to the owners and applicant, and they've fully reviewed that and have no problems with any of the conditions.
Okay, that was going to be my question, so.
Yeah. And in addition, we have not received any objections to this, either of these applications.
Okay, good.
Okay. And not seeing anybody in chambers either, be it resolved that the public hearing for variation VA 2022-018 in conditional use application CU 2022-002 be closed. A mover
Marvin?
and a second.
Michael?
All those in favor? Carried. Continuing then to be it resolved that council approve variation number VA 2022-018. Mover.
Marvin?
And a second.
Andrew?
Any thoughts or comments? All those in favor? And that is carried. Be it resolved that council approve conditional use number CU 2022-002 to allow a shooting range for the use of bows and pellets and guns less than 500 feet per second, subject to an occupancy permit, an annual inspection of the backstop by the owner, and an encroachment agreement. Mover.
Michael?
Second.
Karina?
Any additional thoughts?
This, who inspects it?
It's on the owners to inspect it.
Oh, okay.
It's up to them to do that.
Because
Okay.
it's a private
Yeah.
facility.
Any additional thoughts?
Nope.
All those in favor? And that is carried. Be it resolved that public hearings be adjourned and regular council reconvene. Mover.
Karina?
Second.
Michael?
All in favor? And we're carried. That then takes us to our City of Winkler water and sewer rate application presentation. And that comes from,
I'll get it on the screen right now here.
There he is.
there we are.
This is Ken Anderson. Can you hear us right?
Ken,
Yeah, I can hear you guys pretty well. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So do you just start off with an introduction of myself, I guess? It's sort of make it a little easier for David. Ken Anderson with Associated Engineering. I'm pretty much a water and wastewater engineer. I've been involved with the city for a number of years now, working with Scott and Tim and the guys on their lift stations or water plant. So I'm more of the, like your nuts and bolts engineer, and these rate studies are sort of a little bit of a skill set that I've acquired over the last 20 odd years doing these things for clients, 1 or 2 a year. So it's something I decided was able to help David out there with. So try to do a high level, I guess, review of what we're putting together, and just go back and forth with any questions or any concerns with the process. So anything from council there?
Nothing yet.
Nothing at all yet, Ken?
Okay, I can proceed. I got a couple of slides here. I guess I'll share a screen. Is that probably the best thing?
I think so.
Yeah, I'll try that and tell me if this works. Technology is always wonderful.
Perfect.
We can see something there?
Yes, we
can.
can.
Good.
Perfect. Sort of lose my ability to see you and your reactions when I share a screen like this, but I'll listen for the gasps. So, click on the mouse button. Come on, there we go. So, a bit of like the history of the rate applications. Most communities have done these for, typically don't do these until sometimes 20 years, but 5 to 10 years is pretty a common kind of reoccurrence that I've seen. The public utilities sort of recommends every 3 to 5 years, mostly so that you can just keep up with your growing costs with inflations and changes in your utility. The big thing there that we've seen are concerns if you wait too long, you could have large rate increases because you sort of got caught behind. Also, if you're caught behind, you could be running into deficits if you do your accounting in a certain way. That sort of, I've seen most communities bring in influxes from general reserves to offset their deficits. So they're not technically hitting a deficit, but they really are. So it just means that the rates aren't sort of sufficient enough to run the utility. So that's sort of why they sort of try to create this kind of process every 3 to 5 years. And when I'm doing them, or what the intent is not this full report or hiring an engineer to do it. They really want to try to make it as simple as possible, that you sort of get your numbers together, crunch a few values, fill a few tables in, and submit your new rates based on a simplified application process. So it shouldn't be too onerous, but everybody's pretty busy these days, and trying to find time to do that is a little bit of a procrastination, and that's why you end up in 5 to 10 years instead of 3 to 5. You have the good intentions, but. So the last bylaw that I believe you had passed for major rate changes was in 2012. You have done some bylaws more recent than that, just through pass-throughs, the Pembina Valley's rate increases. I think that's sort of your main adjustments, but generally a review of your rate adequacy for your expenses was probably about 10 years ago or so. But you have been pretty stable and growing community, so it's keeping up with your costs. So I don't think you guys have shown to be going into deficits too much. So you were pretty good, but you are going to start seeing these larger impacts to your utility with the wastewater project that you have, and there's also some water projects that are in the works as well. So you're going to start seeing a large change in your utility structure with O&M costs, debentures coming into these facilities, new staff. So we're trying to get ahead of those costs. So what you don't want to see happen is 3 or 4 years from now or 5 years from now, when all these projects are sort of on the go, you send everybody a bill that's like a 200% increase in their rates, and sort of that gets ugly pretty quickly. So I think the intent here is to try to look at what that would be in the project in the future, and try to stage your increases gradually over the next number of years, so that when you are operating these newer facilities and your rates are starting to become a bit self-sufficient, that there isn't such a rate shock for everybody. You've gradually climbed up to the proper rate you should be with these larger facilities in operation. So that's generally the intent here of what we're proposing in this rate system. And when they say rate shock, usually what we consider rate shock, or the PUB considers rate shock, if you're doing something like 20 to 30% increase in a year to somebody, they would see that as rate shock and try to bring that down to 5 to 10% per year. And if you're doing it every 3 to 5 years, you're almost keeping up with inflation per se. Like you're doing 3 to 5% increases a year if you're growing utility, but just 3% for some inflation is a nice model to have. Don't hold it and jump it, hold it and jump it every so often. So you just want to see this gradually increase each year. So it's not a complicated process per se. It's really just taking your audited statements, your budgets in your facility, all those numbers, and trying to plunk them into the right spots that the Public Utility Board has these little formulas. So that's really the challenge, is saying, where does this number go in the formulas that they have? But it really comes down to the simplest formula, especially for Winkler that has like one rate for all water sold and not a stepped system. You can just say all your expenses related to water utility divided by all the volume of water sold, or what we're projecting to sell, is your water rate. It's pretty much the simple formula at the end, but how you sort of calculate that expenses is really sort of the little bit of trickiness with PUB, because they're pretty much accountants at heart. They like to go through your audited statements and make sure that you're to the letter of what your rates are. So as we said, what's impacting your rates now, why we're probably looking at this or looking into the future, is the new wastewater plant. You're going to take on a large depreciation cost. So it's an amortized asset that gets considered as an expense in your utility. So you take your, I don't want to say your number out loud here, but if you take that huge number and divide it by, say, a 20 to 50 year life on certain aspects, it ends up being a pretty significant annual depreciation value that's considered a cost in your utility, and then the O&M costs on top of that. But we sort of offset a bit of that if you're doing debentures. So the debentures come in as revenue back from into the utility, but the interest on that debenture is an expense. So this is what I mean, that it gets a little complicated of where all these little costs and numbers in your utility plug into these PUB formulas. So I've sort of been working with their Excel sheets that they have for quite a while now, and sort of understand where they sort of expect things to go. So we're seeing you got your wastewater plant project, and then some pending water treatment plant upgrades. None of these are very small projects, so they'll sort of have a significant effect on your rates. And to be compliant with like the Manitoba Act, all your bylaws that you create for the wastewater and wastewater have to be approved by the Public Utilities Board. It should really go through them. I mean, you probably can do a bylaw and not have their approval, but somebody calls them on it, you might get a phone call from the PUB and say, do the right process. So their main role there is like approving the rates, also reviewing your numbers to make sure that they don't see you going into a deficit by sort of keeping your rates depressed for just making it look good for people that their rates aren't that high or competitive, but now you're running into deficits and you don't have enough to make your utility. So they're really attention to that. And then when a customer makes complaints against the utility, they're sort of the agency that makes sure that they're not ignored. So if somebody's getting their water cut off, or somebody's saying they're not that they think the rates are too high, their approval process sort of is a defense for yourselves to say that these rates are fair to you. I'm sorry you're upset with the cost, but we've done the review, the rates are fair. You're sort of going to have to live with them. There's nothing we can really sort of do for you or hear your complaints. So they're really, when it goes through their process and we get them involved in hearings or educator, they're really should be there more on your side as opposed to the customer side to say, these are fair, we're sorry, but we're the watchdog. So that's sort of my experience when we have some hearings with people coming in. I mean, if you go and you change the rates without their approval and things are unfair, then they'll be on the customer side. But generally, I've seen them supporting the utility to say the rates are fair. So that's the other thing that they look for when reviewing the rates is subsidization. I've seen this before where you have a large industry using a large volume of water, but when you break down the numbers, say they're using 50% of your water, but the customers are all paying 75% of the utilities. So they sort of see that as a bit of a red flag and like to see the balancing that should that person using 50% of the water be paying for 50% of the cost based on the rate structures. So they look for those kind of things, as well as subsidizing other utilities. They don't want you to be sort of making money on your water rates to be able to pay for a new hockey arena or something. So they really want that utility to sort of be a self-contained, self-sufficient entity. And their big thing is deficits. They really don't like to see you get caught behind, because then if you apply for a deficit, you almost got to jump your rates up to recover that deficit. And there's a whole paperwork process that gets a little ugly. So we try to avoid that as much as possible. That's sort of where I see communities bringing in some influx of cash from other reserves to sort of offset the deficit, which is not a long-term practice, but it does help with some paperwork. So when we move through the next steps, the first thing we do is put the rates together. Either somebody like me throws them together, or the CAO sort of puts them together. We send them to the council for review. They got to get on board with this kind of the structure, understand what's happening and what they mean. Do the first reading of of the bylaw, and that as a package gets sent to the PUB. They want to see that first reading. They want to see your financials. They want to see the rate justification. And then that process could take like 4 to 6 months if you're lucky. Sometimes I've seen 8 to 12 months that they get a lot backed up. So they really like to give themselves work. So it could take a while. But if some communities are caught behind, they'll do an interim increase. So you can get that in the meantime. But during that 4 to 6 months, they'll also fire back some questions, and then they put it on hold if you take too long to answer them. So it's nice to keep the ball rolling. You get it in there, they'll do a quick review saying you're missing this, or what about this? You answer pretty quickly, it keeps the momentum going. So there is a little bit of back and forth, but the whole process, it's not a pretty quick one these days, or hasn't been for a while yet. And then if they decide that there is some public concerns, either through posting the rates or posting a notice and people are going to call back to them, or if they see a large increase that might need to be defended, they could schedule a hearing. But so playing it by ear and also what they get from feedback from the public will decide usually if they have a hearing or not. So a couple of my hearings have just been, they called it, nobody showed up, and they say, well, that was a waste, because it send you like the $1,000 bill for coming out there and sitting there and nobody showed up, and they just sort of talk a little bit. So it's good to get a handle on that sooner than later. Like if you're doing public notifications, telling people that it's coming, getting people aware, and there's not a real surprise, and PUB sort of feels that the public is maybe a little bit more comforted a bit or understands what's going to happen in the process. So it might defer a hearing. I think that was my last slide really on the overview. So it's really here to answer any kind of questions that come out of this process here. I didn't want to get into the numbers because we're probably going to be still crunching numbers with some of the newer events with what we were predicting for debentures and rates, but I guess people have probably seen what we proposed or put together so far.
Excellent.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Ken. Questions of council?
No, just a comment. I agree with you from my experience in the previous time when the city did it. It's a lot of work for our people if we did it ourselves. So.
Yeah, if you don't do it often enough, you sort of pick it up, put it down, pick it up, put it down. Gets to be a headache, and that's been my most experience. Is just everybody's got their hands full, so I'll try to help. And I don't really go hunting this kind of work. I usually almost 100% now just do it for clients I'm already working for as sort of a helpful favor. These things are just atrocious these days with the PUB. So if somebody asks me to do one, I usually try to run away, but it's a good client. I can't run far.
That's good.
Jody or David, anything further that we need to?
I just want to say I appreciate the work that to work together with Ken on the rate review.
Can you?
I can hear.
It was a great process. Can you hear me, Ken?
Yep, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Just in the background there.
Overall,
Sounds like you're in a corner.
progress, I think we have
Now we can't.
gone far now, and we're very close on bringing it forward now for first reading to council, and then later on submitting it to the pub. And then hopefully sooner or later we can hear back and implement new rates. Yeah, I'm excited that we are where we are right now.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken, again for all your support and all your help.
Yeah, anytime. That's good.
Thank you. And Jody, as a presentation, there's nothing further needed from us.
That's right. This was just ahead of first reading, just to provide
Good.
information on the process.
Thank you.
Yep.
Excellent.
We're good.
Thank you very much, Ken. Have a good evening.
Okay. Yeah, stay safe.
You
Yeah,
too.
find a way to hunker down somewhere and wait out the snow.
Yep, that's going to go fill up the car with gas.
There you go.
See you, everyone.
Moving
Yeah.
forward then, we get to questions from the media or public. Welcome here. And Pam, anything from you?
So just to clarify, first reading on this has not happened.
Not taking place yet. Yeah. Once we have final submission from Ken Anderson, then it will be brought here for first reading. After that, it gets sent to PUB, and when they've given feedback on it, then we can go to second and third.
And then at that time, when you will go over the rates that you're proposing, or that?
That's right, the bylaw will have all of the rates in it. Yeah.
But you will see it in the paper. We will advertise for the first reading.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are you anticipating in April yet, the next meeting, or in May or June?
We're hoping to do it in May.
Or May, good,
Well, the problem would be, the longer we wait,
yeah.
if you would wait a little more longer, then we would have to start working on our new audit statements already. So then the whole numbers again would change for the
Right.
submission for pub. That's why we want to use the audit numbers that we have currently in our calculation
Mm-hmm,
to do the submission.
okay.
Okay. Further thoughts or questions? That's it. I will then entertain a motion to adjourn.
Karina?
Andrew?
Oh,
Andrew just beat Karina, who will second.
please.
All in favor? And we are adjourned.